Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the Conscious Conservation Group podcast. I'm Asher, and today we're exploring the story of redemption, resilience, and the power of collective action. What happens when humanity confronts its own desire for excess? What price do we pay for progress? And what happens when the bills come due? From a landscape ravaged by exploitation to an understanding that to save what we have to act. That's the story of the North American model of conservation. A story of how we came to realize that our pursuit of prosperity almost cost us everything, and how we chose to change course. Join me as we explore this remarkable tale of conservation and ask ourselves what's worth saving and what's worth fighting for. To better understand why the North American model is so important, we need to understand the history of human impact on the continent. To do so, let's take a trip back in time, starting with the end of the Pleistocene epoch, over 10,000 years ago. It is believed that around this time, the first native peoples began to arrive in the North American continent. When they arrived, these weary travelers found themselves surrounded by a vast, untouched landscape teeming with ancient plants and animals. As they settled into their new environment, tribesmen began to develop a unique understanding of the land and its resources, implementing management practices like prescribed burns and rotational hunting grounds to sustain these resources while effectively satisfying the needs of their people. For example, the Ojibwe tribe in the Great Lakes region used prescribed burns to promote the growth of berry-producing shrubs, which in turn supported wildlife like deer and elk. This approach not only maintained ecosystem health, but also ensured a steady food source for the community. Indigenous peoples had an intrinsic understanding that the best practices involved only taking from the environment what could be reasonably replenished. This understanding and appreciation for nature allowed for the development of deep cultural and even spiritual connections to the lands that native peoples called home. Many tribes even used plants and animals as symbols in their creation myths and religious rituals. This deep respect for the world around them established an ethos that prioritized reciprocity and balance with nature. These early practices would shape the very fabric of the ecosystem for thousands of years. We now fast forward to around the year 1500, as the discovery of the so-called New World set into motion a wave of European immigrants arriving on the continent, seeking an opportunity to find success in this new landscape. Many settlers left their native homelands in search of a better life for themselves and their families, braving the long and painful journey across the Atlantic for a chance to find success in the New World. One of the ways settlers could provide this lifestyle was through market hunting, the practice of large-scale commercial hunting of wild animals for profit. This became a very lucrative business for settlers, as the desire for meats, hides, and furs were increasingly in demand back in Europe. Settlers targeted species like beavers and white-tailed deer to meet this demand, and before long, this industry grew to devastating proportions. Along with the booming market for animal products, the introduction of firearms accelerated hunting capabilities, and the expansion of railroads across the country opened up the interior to even more hunters and settlements. Along with market hunting, settlers also found success in agriculture, which provided food for their communities and boosted production of livestock, including cows and pigs. With the proliferation of livestock, small seaside settlements began to run out of available grazing land, thus needed to expand inland to accommodate the growing demand. The clearing of land for agriculture and freely grazing livestock led to increasing conflict with the native peoples, who had long relied on these lands for hunting and sustenance. This expansion induced changes in the environment that degraded ecosystem health and would only become more common as settlements spread across the U.S. This perfect storm of factors set the table for nearly 400 years of unsustainable consumption, pushing the landscape to its limits. From the early 1500s to the late 1800s, market hunting caused great harm to both targeted species and those that relied upon them. Several of these species, such as the passenger pigeon, were hunted to extinction in just a few decades, and species like white-tailed deer, elk, moose, and wild turkeys were also nearly wiped out. A prime example of the harm imposed on wildlife is the loss of the American bison, which at one point had a population that numbered in the millions. Settlers systematically removed bison to clear grazing land for their livestock and also targeted them to undermine native land claims. Settlers would even cull massive herds of bison from moving trains, killing countless animals in the name of taming the wild. These practices not only devastated the plains ecosystem, damaging fragile grasslands, but also destroyed the tribe's traditional ways of life. The loss of the American bison had extensive and irreversible ripple effects on the landscape that we still feel to this day. At the turn of the 20th century, after hundreds of years of unsustainable land management, individuals and groups recognized the devastating impact these practices were having on the environment, sparking a push for reform. Pioneers like George Bird Grinnell, founder of the Boone and Crockett Club, advocated for a new approach to land management, one that focused on proactive, science-based efforts. Alongside Grinnell, conservationists like President Theodore Roosevelt and Aldo Leopold recognized the intrinsic value of wilderness and wildlife beyond their utility for fur and meat. Leopold's ability to capture the beauty of nature in his book, A Sand County Almanac, inspired a new generation of conservationists to take a personal role in protecting our environment. And President Roosevelt's conservation record is incredibly impressive, setting aside over 240 million acres of protected land, a monumental achievement that continues to benefit us today. As wildlife populations hit rock bottom, the need for change became urgent. Conservationists pushed for new laws and regulations that shifted the paradigm. Market hunting was abolished, and excise taxes on hunting gear provided a funding mechanism for conservation efforts. The creation of the Environmental Protection Agency established pathways for species preservation, and landmark laws like the Migratory Bird Treaty Act and Migratory Bird Hunting and Conservation Stamp Act provided federal funding to aid in rebuilding what was lost. These actions helped recover species like white-tailed deer and wild turkeys, giving a dying landscape a fighting chance, while laying the groundwork for the North American model of wildlife conservation. As conservation efforts took hold, changes in agriculture practices also played a crucial role in the North American model's success. Sustainable farming methods, like rotational grazing and regenerative agriculture, help to reduce habitat destruction and promote ecosystem resilience. For example, the Taylor Grazing Act of 1934 allowed the federal government to regulate grazing on public lands, reducing overgrazing and promoting greater stewardship. These changes restored wildlife habitats, improved soil health, and enhanced water quality. Meanwhile, unsustainable practices had led to widespread soil degradation and erosion, prompting conservationists like Leopold to push for more sustainable approaches. The Dust Bowl era highlighted the need for soil conservation, leading to the establishment of the Soil Conservation Service in 1935. This marked a significant shift towards responsible land use, acknowledging that agriculture and conservation go hand in hand. This shift in focus led to more responsible land use, recognizing the interconnectedness of agriculture, conservation, and wildlife management. The North American model is built on 7 pillars that allow these efforts to be so successful. 1. Wildlife is held in the public trust, ensuring that these resources are managed for the benefit of all. 2. No market hunting, which protects wildlife from commercial exploitation. 3. Regulated hunting and fishing. This helps maintain healthy populations. 4. Legitimate uses and no waste, which promotes responsible stewardship of natural resources. 5. Wildlife's ability to move freely across borders, which respects natural habitats. 6. Science-based conservation guides decisions with data and research. And 7. Equal access to all citizens, ensuring everyone has a stake in conservation, not just the rich and well-connected. These pillars aren't just principles, they're the foundation for thriving ecosystems and the communities that value them. By the end of the 20th century, the North American model was firmly established, built on principles of science-based management and public trust. People have rallied behind conservation, recognizing the importance of protecting their natural heritage. Today, thousands of organizations in North America focus on conserving wilderness and protecting wildlife, making the US and Canada global conservation leaders and a testament to what's possible when we prioritize the wild. For instance, groups like the Gulf Coast Conservation Association is working to protect sea turtle habitats and promote sustainable fishing practices, and local organizations like the Alabama Wildlife Federation are advocating for conservation policies and educating communities about the importance of wildlife conservation. The North American model's success has inspired countries worldwide to adopt similar approaches, setting a global benchmark. The North American model's success shows us what's possible, but we can't take it for granted. As we move forward, we face challenges like pollution, climate change, and habitat degradation. These threats can quickly undermine the progress we've made in conserving species and ecosystems if not properly addressed. To address these challenges, we can support policies that prioritize conservation and sustainable land use practices, encourage collaboration between private landowners, governments, and conservation organizations, and try to educate ourselves and others about the importance of conservation. By fighting for our environment, we're preserving it for generations to come. We owe it to ourselves, our kids, and the wild world to do just that. So, get involved locally, support conservation efforts, and be a voice for the wild. Let's keep the momentum going and ensure that our wildlife and wild places thrive for centuries to come. Some of the best ways to get involved are volunteering with local conservation organizations, contacting your local representatives and voicing support for conservation policies, and participating in citizen science projects. Everyone has a role to play in conservation, and getting involved can be a very rewarding way of doing your share. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Conscious Conservation Group podcast. If you have ideas for future topics or want to share your thoughts, hit us up in the comments below. And until next time, be wild, stay conscious.